Foundations are important, and that's the key takeaway in today's video. By the way, if you are new here, my name is Henny and this is Studio Henny's. The design for this project had been inspired by one of my viewers in YouTube, actually, who kindly requested to look into a dress that they would like to figure out. Now here is the dress in question. Now what they really wanted to know is how these flowers would be attached under the skirt. So the way I approached this is I designed something else, of course, but with similar principle. So we still got to figure out how this is actually done. Now, a lot of times it's not possible to exactly know how something is done, but you can research the ways, you can research some ways and just try to figure out. Because if you're not the person who actually worked on this dress, created the pattern for it and figured it out, and unless you work for the company, there's no way of knowing exactly how it's done. And a lot of times it's just, trial and error. So this is a design I actually created, and I was super keen on using some red because I'm gonna be super honest now, I have had some leftover fabric from Valentine's Day. I wanted to create some Valentine's Day content and I never got around to it, so I had some red fabric laying around, so I really wanted to make use of it. So I used this tulle fabric. I'm gonna use this for some foundations and also create some little florets that are gonna go onto the skirt. And then I did have some poly taffeta. More about this later because we're gonna do something with it. And then I had this Duchess. This is poly Duchess. I still have a lot left, so I'm sure you're gonna still see this. There is no way out. Right, so I'm just gonna look at some inspirations for my design quickly. We're gonna walk through and then we're gonna dig in. And as usual, I'm gonna work on my half scale dummy. So this is my initial sketch for this gown. So I wanted to keep the mini aspect of the original inspiration. However, I wanted it to flow into a longer gown. So this is going to require a base fitted bustier and also a custom petticoat. As you can see, my lovely little sketch here. The petticoat or the underskirt is going to be curved like a bubble, so the florets can sit on top and actually curve into the inside of the skirt as well. And also it's going to give like a structure for the skirt, obviously. So everything is going to sit on this foundation. So as for the silhouette, I liked the shape of the initial inspiration that I had. I really liked this curved silhouette here, but I wanted it to flow into a longer gown, as I mentioned, and also like spread apart a little bit, and also spread apart on the bust area, and just stay away from the body. For the little florets applique, I was mainly inspired by these Valentino numbers. However, I wanted to, this is all like tulle and it looks quite busy and just very dense, so I wanted to simplify it a little bit. So I was looking at this style from Elisab and basically that's what gave me like the direction for the florets that I'm going to make. Okay, so we got the design and we got some direction. Let's make a gown. Right, so I'm just going to start with the petticoat, as I mentioned. So here I'm just trying to get the measurement, the rough measurement for how this is going to look. So I'm just roughly mapping this out, and then later I'm just going to measure all the strips so I can create the petticoat, which is going to be from covered boning essentially. So here I'm just trying to see with the boning what the curve that I'm going to need for this skirt part, so the florets can curve into the skirt. So here is just a quick sketch how this is going to look, as I mentioned. So I'm going to have all these curved parts on the petticoat. So it's going to need that area that is sitting close to the body, and then I'm going to have all these like curved, let's say, prongs that is going to sit on top of that. Right, something like this. I mean, it's going to make sense. I'm going to show you. Right, so I'm already just preparing the channels for the boning to create the petticoat. And then here already you can see how I secured it to like a waistband, and I'm just trying to add this reinforcing strip that is going to sit close to the hip. Obviously most of it is done by hand. Right, so we have like a quite good basis now. So that's the structure where the skirt part is gonna sit on, and also I have these curved elements, if you can see. So that's how the florals are gonna go underneath here as well. The only thing I'm going to do now is this tiny section here, which is going to be visible. I'm going to cover it with the same satin, but then on top of that, I'm going to just have this gathered tulle, and I'm just going to cover it all around so it's a bit more stable. Right, so I'm just quickly draping these parts for the covered section, and I'm just gonna go by sections. I'm just marking the seam lines. So I'm just gonna seam them by sections, because that's the best way I can do, especially in the satin that I'm going to use. Here you can see that I'm also going to the inside. And just cutting some excess away and just carrying on. Excuse my hair. My hair loves to be in every frame. Right, and I'm just gonna cut it out in the satin so I can quickly stitch it up. And here I'm just preparing the tulle, because I'm going to also cover the petticoat with some tulle. I gather it at the waist, and also I gather it towards the inside, like it's gonna curve around the petticoat, so it's gonna give it some extra puffiness and just kind of lift the skirt even more. So here you can see as I'm preparing these gathered tulle pieces, and these are like several pieces, and I didn't like seam them together because it's completely unnecessary. So they are just going to sit on the waist and then curl all the way inside, as I mentioned. And then I'm just going to hand stitch it onto the waistband and also on the inner parts. So I'm just creating this little mushroom, really. So here you can see me, I'm tracing the bodice pieces, and I am so sorry guys, but I lost the video where I was draping this bodice, but don't worry, I have a couple more videos on YouTube where I actually create this type of bodice. I'm just gonna link them up here so you can have a look if you really want to. I mean, it's fairly simple. I have a front and then a side panel and then two panels at the back. As in on the half, obviously this is all pairs. And so what we need to know about this bodice piece is that they must sit under the waist, because it's gonna give us more stability when I'm going to top stitch or like hand stitch this petticoat onto this bodice. You will see the bodice, don't worry, it's coming soon, so you're gonna see how this looks. And then here I'm already cutting the pieces out. I'm gonna use the Duchess that I shown you in the beginning of the video. I just used some simple fusing just to reinforce it a little bit. So I do have the top, the base, sort of ready, but I noticed that it needs a bit of alteration to this back panel here. I was actually suspicious because it did look quite straight. This line looked quite straight on the paper, but then I stitched it anyways, but I mean, I'm missing like a huge chunk here. So I'm just going to like recut and replace this one panel because the rest sits quite nice. Right, so once I replaced the panel, I created some canvas pieces as well that I'm going to stitch together, and then also add the bonings along the seams of this inner bustier. And to be completely transparent with you guys, you would normally have, you know, a lining inside or a facing, but because I'm working on this half scale dummy, if the more layers I put, the more difficult it is, and it doesn't sit as well as if it was a real size. So I'm going to skip that part. But if it was for like a real size, I would have also like a facing or lining inside. But for this one, I'm just going to finish the neckline with just folding in the seam allowance and just hand stitch it down. Right, so I just secured the canvas just around on the outer seam allowances, so on the center back seam, the neckline, and then on the hem part. And then I just cut the canvas away along the neckline so I can nicely fold in the outer shell and just using the stitch to nicely finish that neckline. Guys, just a quick break, as usual. I just wanted to thank you for watching, and if you got this far, please don't forget to subscribe, share, like, comment, or all of them at the same time, you know. It would help me tremendously to grow this channel. And if you're here because you want to learn draping or you want to start draping, then I do have a free PDF guide of how to drape a basic bodice block. I think it's a great starting point because it's fairly simple and it's quite useful to have a basic bodice block. So just get it, it's in the description, the link is in the description, and it's free as I said, so just go for it. Right, and then I started preparing the little florets. These are essentially just strips of tulle. In my case, they were like about 5-6 centimeter strips, as in width. And then I just started to like swirl them up with some pleats occasionally as well. So just a little pleat, and then always just like twisting it and just creating these little florets, and then I just secure them by hand in the middle when I was happy with the amount. So right after this, I started playing around with the position of the flowers. Obviously later they are gonna get hand stitched, but I just wanted to see if I needed to make any more of these little florets or it's gonna be enough. I needed about like 15 florets for this little size. And here I'm already hand stitching. And as I mentioned, so that's why I needed that curved petticoat. So, you know, all the florets can actually go inside of the skirt. So that's where I'm starting So you can see me hand stitching, so the flowers are gonna go inside of the skirt as well. Right, so now I have all these little florets attached to this underskirt, and they go all the way in. So it curves, because this area like curves in, so the florets are like following that form. And so next what I need to do is just gonna hand stitch this this underskirt onto this bodice base, and then I'm gonna start draping. And the fabric that I chose is this, well, as I mentioned, this was like a leftover. And so this polytaffeta, and I don't really appreciate how this looks when it's plain. It actually looks quite plasticky, so I didn't really like it. So I thought I'm gonna sort of manipulate it a little bit. So what I'm doing is just I'm gonna work with like bigger strips of fabric, and I just crinkled it like something like this, and then just run the iron, and it leaves these quite organic creases in the fabric, which I quite like. So that's what I'm going to use for the rest of the drape. Right, so hand stitch this and then drape the rest of the dress. Right, and then I started preparing these strips of fabric that I'm going to crinkle. So I wanted to have some sort of finish. So when I cut the strips, I already started making like some pin hem. So it's actually, you know, it's a finished edge. And then here you can see me twist and crinkle the fabric under the iron. And here it is. We've got our little strips. And then I started draping. It was a little bit, this type of things are always like so organic. I'm just trying to see what looks nice. Like obviously I do have a plan, but I don't have like a very specific plan. So that's what you can see now. I mean, you know, sometimes the final outcome might look a little bit different than what you see here, because I'm always like, you know, trying and just trying to see what I like, and then I change around, and I just can't, you know, record every single step. But you know, it's the same principle. I'm just using, you know, the pins to pin it to the bodice, and then later I am going to hand stitch this onto the bodice as I pinned. So I'm going to have the stitches in between these folds. And again, as I mentioned, I don't want it to be like fitted onto the body, so everything is just kind of gonna stand away from the bodice. Here again, it's not like it's the final version for the back, but I just wanted to see what I want to do and how I'm going to finish this. So the underneath petticoat is obviously going to be completely covered. We're not gonna see that, only those little only that little area that is covered with the flowers that is going to be visible. Yes, it did need a lot of hand stitching in the end. I mean, if I had the facing, obviously I would finish the facing after I hand stitched the bustier, or use stitches that are not going completely through the bodice.